Hello. No, it was a beautiful picture, and I'm very excited to have you here. One thing that was extremely unique about this film was, aside from many things, was how you developed it. That you didn't sit in a dark room, you didn't script it out, you didn't craft it and then tell the actors what to say. Rather, you gathered them all together and you workshopped this, and collectively you came up with a story. Can you share a little bit about the process?
It's kind of strange actually, because I had the story very clearly sort of mapped out in my mind, and we didn't have a script, but we didn't improvise it in the sense of me going, okay, so you're in this room, now go for it. It was more a case of we sit down before like every scene and say, right, this is the point of the scene, this is what we need to get to. Let's figure this out. And we sort of write it then and there, and then we would sort of develop it as we go along, and a lot of freedom would come with each take. So with every single take, we'd say, oh, let's try this instead. Let's try this one. Oh, we've got that. That's there. Let's go again. Because I was cutting it as well. I figured that we could. Like I kept saying, continuity is pussies. Don't worry about that stuff. So I say, you just hear someone say cunt like 9 times. Right? I can say pussy.
Yeah,
there's a child in here. Oh my god!
but she's an actress.
I'm so sorry. I'll stop swearing. She's laughing. Don't laugh. It's not making so clever.
So one of the things though, it's like obviously it's like the buddy movie and the road trip movie. That those genres have been done many times, but I've never seen it done quite like this. So, what was the inspiration for the story where you use this device as a method to bring them all together and take them on this journey?
I think I'm kind of scared a little bit of plot points. I read a lot about how you should write something, and I worry a lot about how predictable those points come and those beats come when you're telling a story. So, like a really good example is the decision to go to Cornwall, and I didn't want that to be someone saying, "Hey, this kid loved sharks. There's supposed to be a shark in Cornwall. Let's go there. That'd be great." I wanted that to be like a little seed that was planted, and then someone else has that seed planted for another reason, which is like Alistair's character, Craig, the guy who owed money to a bad guy who didn't have cancer. And I thought that would be a really interesting way to just bring everything together so that the decision is made almost selfishly by another character rather than the two characters who actually kind of want it and appreciate. And one of my favorite moments was shooting that bit where actually Phil is the character who doesn't want to go to Cornwall, but he's the one that vocalizes it for everyone else. When Alistair, there's a scene where Alistair says, "Oh, I think we should," and he's like, "Shut up about Cornwall, we're not going to go to Cornwall." And there's that nice shot of Daisy and Craig just going, "Cornwall, okay, there's nice, the wall, there's the sharks shit." I'm like, okay, yeah, let's do that. So those things I kind of enjoyed sort of discovering, but that came very late because there were a lot of things we shot, and I just thought all of them felt so on the nose and bad. I hope that one wasn't bad. It might have been.
No, can you talk a little bit about, this afternoon we were talking about how the original idea was to go in a slightly different journey to bring about some of the character points, and can you tell a little bit about what the original idea was before you came up with Shark in Cornwall?
Well, the original idea in my head was, it took place in Canada, and I was like slightly nervous saying this because you might go, "That's a much better idea for a film. Why did you make this one?" And the idea is that it was set in Canada. The father was still British. He went back to the UK was the implication, and he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna be successful in the band, and then I'll come back with money, and I'll be a good dad to this kid when he's in his teenage years, and I will make up for everything that I'm not here for." That was like his justification, and of course that justification is robbed from him when the kid when the kid dies. And I thought it would be really interesting to center the story about the only thing this kid did at school that was any good, which is an essay on a specific Native American tribe. So when the parents Googled that to find out, like, we're going to bury him in this, in their land, and they found just one thing on like Google Earth. I go, okay, that's where we're going to go. But they couldn't find any information on the tribe. And when they get there, it's a casino run by like a 60-year-old white guy. And they realized that their kid was smart enough to have completely made up a tribe so that he could get a good mark, knowing that the only way to get a good mark is to write about something in an intelligent way that the teacher wouldn't have heard of. And they get to learn something more new about their kid. Would be awesome.
Well,
I could do that as another movie because I couldn't withdraw the comparison. I just have to come up with something else. So he's not dead.
Well, and the thing that I like though was he said that with that point and with this movie eventually was not so much about the boy as about the journey and what it brought out in each of the characters as they went on this journey together.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I like that idea and that little twist, it's kind of cute. But I've seen that movie. You know, so it's like, does anyone remember a film called Coupe de Ville? Like Alan Arkin has spent the last 50 years playing like guys who are dying of old age, and this one was made in the 80s, and he was again playing a guy who was dying of old age. He got his kids to drive his car from one part of America to the other, and it was just his excuse to get. I'm ruining Coupe de Ville, you know. It was just his excuse to get the kids to bond, because they never really bonded, and it had nothing to do with the car. And I was like, oh, that's amazing. And that was a film that I grew up loving. And I thought, oh yeah, this is like Coupe de Ville, and that was the initial idea. But I think as I went on, my insecurity about those obvious story points sort of got in there, and I was like, I know what, I'm really glad this is set in the UK, and it's so small. I mean, you can drive to any part of the UK in a day. I needed the car to break down slightly so that it would take them out a little bit longer. But yeah, I waffled, sorry.
To talk about the casting process, because I know that you really had everything in your mind, and then all of a sudden one of your key actors got a pain gig. And
yeah, the main character in this film, Craig Russell, he was meant to play the character whose name was Craig in the film, who was played by Alistair Curtin. He was meant to be the comedy character, the guy who owed money. But what happened was Anthony Eden, who had cast as the initial father, the failed father, he had this offer to play the lead role in The Woman in Black in the West End. And he did this really sweet thing where he phoned me up and said, Mark, we've been offered the lead in The Woman in Black. And this was at the time when, you know, Harry Potter was going to play the lead in the film. And I was like, dude, this is going to be wicked. You know, all eyes are going to be on you, because everyone's going to want to know what that part is all about. They're going to see the play first. And he said, well, what should I do? Should I do your film? What should I do with this film? Oh, should I do the play? And I thought, wouldn't it be wicked if I just said to him, yeah, do my film for free, dude. Because I'm pretty sure he would have just gone, all right, Mark, I was just being decent. I thought you'd say the decent thing back and say, do a play. I'm going to do a play. It's paying me hundreds of pounds every day. But no, I did the decent thing and said, do the play, dude, it'll be fine. And when we were looking for another actor to fill Anthony's role, Craig couldn't make one of the workshops. So Alistair Curtin was there helping me with script stuff, and he's very fast thinking. He's really great with like quick lines. He sat in for Craig Russell's character, which was the character he ended up playing. And he was so good that I thought, oh, you have to do this part. And the other guy that filled in for Anthony was excellent as well. I just thought, oh, I've got to fire Craig. I can't do that. Like, I really want to work with Craig. And as I was thinking, well, what if I switch Craig around and give him that role of the failed father? But I've known Craig for 16 years, and I'd never seen him raise his voice once. He was like the nicest, funniest guy. And I mentioned, and then Alistair phoned me up and said, you know what, I wouldn't mind acting in this movie. Can I play that funny guy? Maybe you shift Craig around and get him to play the part that Anthony just vacated. And I thought, yeah, okay, we can. That's exactly what's going on in my head just now. Let's do that. And to test Craig out, we gave him a punch bag in the gym and said, that's the coffin, nick it. I'm going to play the mum. He's going to play one of some friends. We're funeral guests. We're going to try and stop you, get past us. And he just hurled the most venomous abuse that I'm not going to repeat because he's a child in the audience. It was just horrific. I was like, holy shit, dude, you're amazing. You should play that part. And he says that was the shit. It was,
and you'd said that you had to give him a make under because he was way too handsome for the role.
Sexiest man I've ever played. So I was like, I can't have anyone that attractive represent the character that's meant to be me in a film. What could be? Jesus. So I thought, I know, grow a beard. We're going to give you this like messed up skin condition. I'm going to make your hair really greasy. And I said, yeah. And then so Michelle Webb, who's used to making zombies for us on Colin, which is our first movie, she sort of made this incredibly attractive man look a mess for this film. He's still kind of good looking. You can see it, you know.
So speaking of that, he kind of represented yourself in your mind. Do you base a lot of your films, a lot of your characters upon yourself?
I'm a lot nicer than that, I think. That was my fear of how people would see me, my fear of how lousy a father I would be. And like, almost the sort of pipe dream notion. Because choosing to make films as a job is not necessarily the most lucrative, choice. But at the same time, it's wholly satisfying. And I think that sorry, I was just waffling, and this is the thing I warned you about, when I go off on a tangent, I start thinking, blue is a really good color.
Yeah, that's okay. So there's shades of you and everything that you write.
There's a part of me in all of them. I think Daisy's anger, and that's how she processes like grief, like an ex-girlfriend pointed out that like whenever I'm dealing with something, that whenever I was dealing with someone that died or any sort of negative emotion, it kind of came out of me as like sort of frustration. She's like, it's a very odd way to deal with that. She's like, most people just get sad and cry. Like, why are you crying about these things? It's like, you cry watching movies. Why do you cry when people die? That makes a lot more sense. And I think it's so then Daisy kind of handled that. Alistair definitely handled the sort of the klutzy, stupid decisions I make. Craig handled everything that I think of as fear. And Phil, oddly enough, ends up being the sort of person I hope I can be, that sort of rational guy that makes the right decisions. And he's the only character in the movie that doesn't have an arc. Like, he seems to be a really solid favorite with people who watch the film. And I think that's because of that relatable quality of him liking someone. I think his relationship with Daisy and the stuff that they did together was like absolutely incredible. We worked really hard to get that to work just right, because when you have a character that the audience hopefully likes, being attracted to a person that doesn't quite notice that, you damage that character. But I think Daisy managed to handle it really, really well, and I think that somehow their relationship sort of really works well. We really worked hard to get that working, and I really hope that no one thought Daisy was a bit of a douche, because she's like, it's really nice. I know your kid's dead, but go and kiss him or something. That's not what you want.
So you put this film up on Match.com as your profile and said, "This is me."
Yeah, my team and Match is pretty shit.
All right. Well, tonight we actually have a unique opportunity. There's an organization called U Plus Project, which is dedicated to supporting young filmmakers, artists, and musicians. And Isabella, who's the child in the audience, is here tonight. So I'd actually like to invite Isabella to come down and ask a few questions of Mark while she's here.
Hello. We did a little rehearsal earlier. It was good. It went well.
There you go. There's no footrest.
I've got footrest. Do you want to swap? Should we swap?
So, how exactly did you come up with the whole idea of everything?
Of the film. I think it was definitely to do with, I think I've got this really odd thing where I'm really scared that people I like are going to die. It's a bit of an odd thing. I don't deal with it very well. And that was kind of where a lot of this came from. I'd love to have kids. I'd really be excited to, if the day I set my kid up to make him or her watch Jaws, it's going to be quite fun. And you're about the right age. It's good. It's a good work. But that was the thing. I remember my dad saying to me when I was younger, we'd seen Raiders of the Lost Ark already, and it must have just been a night that he didn't want to watch it. And he said, "You can't watch this. You got to go to bed." And I said, "Why can't I watch this, Dad? I've seen you watch a really good film. Please let me watch it." He said, "No, you got to go to bed. You can't watch it because of the end." He goes, "What do you mean? You know what I'm talking about? The end? They put it in a box. What are you talking about? That's the end." No, the melting Nazis. You can't watch it because of the melting Nazis. I was like, okay, fine. And he was watching it anyway, so I just stood on the stairs and sort of looked through the crack in the door. I got to watch it. It's okay. I don't recommend you do the same thing. Listen to your parents.
If you look back on the film now, would there be anything that you would add or change?
Yeah, there's loads. I think this is the thing, the really interesting thing I think you find. Do you want to make films? Is that okay? This is the thing that I noticed, is that with each film you make, you learn so much. And then with the next one you go, ooh, if only I knew this much when I was making that one, I could apply it. But the great thing about that is that with each film, you should hopefully improve. So every little step along the way that you go, you'll figure out a couple of extra things. You'll go, oh, now I understand this a little bit more. And sometimes all those lessons might come in a film that you make that is absolutely terrible and everyone hates it. But you still learn from those. And there are loads of examples of really great filmmakers who have made a film that that I kind of like sometimes, but larger audiences don't. And they learn so much from those experiences. So I think there's a lot of fun to be had in making a film. I mean, the downside is you fail publicly, but you kind of get over that.
I heard you talking about the casting. Was it really hard to choose all the different people to work with the parts?
No, I've worked with these guys on different films before, and this is another thing that I do that's a little bit irregular. I don't often hold castings. I don't say, let's have a room full of people, we'll all sit there, we'll all lie to each other. The actor's going to come in and tell me how great they think the script is, but they don't care, they just want the part. I'm going to talk about how great I think the film's going to be, but I don't really know. I'm terrified that I'm going to mess it all up. So instead of that, I tend to do little effects tests or short films. And I work with these actors, and the general feeling is this is the thing that we're doing together. And you get to really get a good sense of how everyone works. And all four of the main characters were in my first feature, Colin. And Daisy played Colin's sister, and Elsa played Colin. So it was kind of tricky for him because the last one he was carrying it on his shoulders. And in this, I was like, you don't have to worry about any of that stuff. You have so much freedom. And he kind of couldn't get used to it, but we kind of worked through it. Craig is just someone I loved working with. He was in one of my first films. He was the failed dad. And Phil DeGuara, the Cockney guy with the big bulgy eyes. You know, he looks so much like Gollum. How could you not cast him? You can tell him I said that. I tell him all the time. What a terrible film.
So your first feature film, Colin, was that the first ever production you've ever done?
No, that was the first feature film I'd done. I didn't expect anyone to see it other than my friends, so I kind of worked to make the film really so that my friends would forget that they were watching their friends in it, if that makes any sense. They'd forget that it was a film that I'd made, they'd watch themselves and forget that it was them. So that was what the focus was, and the way I wanted to go around that was to make them really emotionally engaged with the characters. And that was the same thing I used in Magpie. I was like, oh, what if, you know, only my friends end up seeing this? And it's handy because me and my friends watch films in the same way. We analyze things in the same way, and all the things that weren't said in Magpie. I mean, this came up in the Twitter Q&A we did about whether Tony was an alcoholic or not. And I was just like, I don't really want to answer that, but I'm really glad that it comes up so these people are thinking about it. Because, you know, obviously the implication is definitely that he's been drunk in the period that the movie takes place. But I wasn't sure how clear that was, and you know, you doubt yourself, and it's really satisfying to know that he was drunk enough that people want to know if he's an alcoholic. So that's handy.
So because Colin was your first feature film, do you think Magpie has improved if you'd have done it, as it were? If that makes sense.
If Magpie is like a better movie, then I think it is. There's some stuff I miss on this that we did on Colin. Like there's so much fun and play and invention. It's like, okay, how do we make a head explode without a head? And we've got this like puppet that a friend of mine had given to us. And those were fun things to get past. And when we shot the scene where the coffins tossed out of the car and the little boys sort of like seen briefly, like that was so much, like everyone was, it was kind of cool how traumatized everyone seemed when we were shooting that. We do these long 8-minute takes so that everyone would just really get into it when the cameras were rolling. And then when that finished, I was like, oh great, now we get to run over the bad guys. So let's run over the bad guys. And then that was this really fun, complicated thing where I had a guy run across the road and then freeze so that we could like pause him so that the digital effect could sort of bend him slightly as the car hits him. It's a really fun thing to go through frame by frame because as the car hits him, his spine bends. And we made lots of pains to make sure that, oh look, they're not murderers, they're both alive, but like they'll never walk again.
I didn't watch that bit because of the blood, and I don't know
Okay.
blood, but I kind of saw the first bit and the last bit and kind of pieced the middle bit together. But,
There was so much blood. It was like The Shining when the doors open, but you haven't seen that. That's all that blood.
do you think that you could have like maybe added more special effects, or do you think you should have taken some away, or what are your views on that?
Oh, this is kind of cool because there were about 57 visual effects shots in the whole film, which is really odd because we did Colin, which is a movie about the end of the world, and there were literally 3 visual effects shots in the whole movie. And we do a film about 4 guys driving from London to Cornwall, and we ended up using 57 visual effects shots. So there were quite a few just teeny little fixes that because we were shooting so quickly, and there's some stuff that was just B-roll footage that when I was editing, because I edit with the sound down, so I can never tell when the take has started and someone's pressed record early. I can never tell that stuff. So I just go, that's a good reaction. Sometimes it's just an actor getting ready to do a scene, and there's a perfect reaction cut to. So I use that sometimes. And I think that some of these shots were like, there's a really lovely shot of Craig reflected in Craig the character, the guy that owes money, reflected in the wing mirror of the car. He's just looking out to sea and thinking. And but there was a hotel behind us which we were trying to mask out. So Justin Hales, who is kind of my co-partner, he owns No Way Past Me, he took some of the sky and cut around Alistair's face frame by frame and replaced the building with sky, so there's this nice outer, and he respected the depth of field and the lens as well, so instead of making it a sharp sky, it's out of focus because it was behind Al for several miles behind him. So like little things like that we did that were quite nice. Yeah, there's so many of them, and I was like, oh, I can understand why George Lucas keeps messing with Star Wars because it's so easy.
So Phil, the character, and the actor, it was almost at the beginning when he was swearing so much that it was actually funny. it was just the way he was acting was so like serious, but it was just funny.
The thing is, he's got a wife and child, so every time he gets away from them, he's like, oh no, you can talk, and he just throws them out there. Some terrible words in there. It's just not like so. It's not big. It's not fun.
So when you're working with the actors, as you said, you work with them, all the actors, quite a lot. Is it harder to work with friends, or do you think it will be easier to work with actors that you've never met?
I enjoy doing both. I really do enjoy doing both. With these guys, they're I like trusting them. There's a thing, I think they know that means a lot to me. So you can figure out the people you can trust. It's obviously something that comes. And I think with those four, I mean, they really loved the opportunity they had to create these characters. They really enjoyed the fact that I'd say, okay, we've got that, but let's spend some time doing this. And it was so professional that they would, if I said, look, let's try something a little bit lighter, they knew how to play that character lighter so that it would be consistent. And that was something that really impressed me. Phil and Alistair aren't friends at the moment, by the way. I think Phil is one of those guys who sometimes forgets that the relationship he has in the film doesn't carry to real life. So the character Dougie, right, the guy with the Santa costume?
Yeah.
Right, well, Phil works in a lot of bars in London, and he's quite high up, and people like him and trust him and respect him for some odd reason. And because of the scene in this film where that actor with the beard and the Santa hat played a guy running a bar, I walked into a bar recently, like last year, and he was in there, and he was the manager. I was like, Lucas, what are you doing managing a bar? He goes, well, the thing is, I think I played the manager of a bar in a film with Phil once. I think somewhere in his head he thinks I can do this. So I just said I could because I need the job. And he figured it out as he went along. And I thought this was so funny it couldn't be true. And I mentioned it in front of Phil, and Phil did that really amazing thing that he does in the film several times where he just sort of goes, I was like, oh my God, you really did think that he could run a bar. What's wrong with you? So Phil has taken that out into the real world, his relationship with Alistair, and he's been just a little bit sort of overbearing with him, and I was like, it's a problem. So they're not friends anymore. And it's really funny to see them in a room together because they sit really far apart. And Alistair's just like, he's got no respect for me. He talks down to me, he seems to think I'm a child. But what Alistair did that was so brilliant in that was when Al always goes into a scene with a plan. He wants to say certain things and he wants to get them out. And an actor like Phil, he's just like, I'm going to keep talking and you're not going to get a word in edgeways. And Al was able to play that frustration of not being able to get a word in edgeways, but his status always remained just kind of like, just do this thing, he was hunched and saying, yeah, well, like that scene where they're in the car and he's like, the first scene where, for me, it always feels like the audience can actually like, oh, we can laugh at this film, this is okay. And this bit he says, you've got to come in with me, this is the best funeral I've ever been to. Really? No, it sucks. You know, it's horrible. That was one of those things where Alistair was shouting at him because he couldn't get the words out. But he did it in that really hunched, like, you know, kind of scared way, like, oh, tough guy, because there's a window between us. Yeah. And because we bought the car for the film, I said to Phil, I said, look, you know, he's locked the door, just kick the door, it doesn't matter, dent the thing, it'd be funny. And so we just started kicking the car, and Alistair was like, what are you doing? Don't dent it too much. I get to do that at the end of the film. So he started panicking about Phil stealing his thunder when he was denting the car.
I liked when he was like, no, I'm keeping it closed, it's too cold.
Yeah, it's like,
That was funny.
that's where the swearing starts. Like, so I was like, there's nothing until the frustration begins, and then it kind of kicks off and keeps going.
It was an incredible film, but how did you do it on 45 pounds?
Oh, we didn't do this one on 45 pounds. No, this was 3,000. We were given 5. 2 of that went on my rent. Really bad. Like everyone knows now. Yeah, so 2 of that went on my rent. The rest of it went on the film, and I mean, because we got on so well. There's a terrible thing that happens when you drink. The next day, you have a hangover, and you're emotionally fragile. You know, anything can make you cry, sometimes, depending on how much you drink. So what I would do, and this is a very cheap tactic, was I would get these guys at the end of every day, congratulations, here's some beers, drink. So that the next day, after we went to bed at 1 a.m., we'd get up at 7 a.m. and have breakfast together and then go and work. They were always tired. They were always hungover, they were always emotionally compromised, so I could always say, okay, now you need to nearly cry, and they'd be like, I'm like, no, just pull it back a bit, like, okay, it was great, it was so easy. So everyone was on the verge of tears the whole time. It was great.
Well, let's, are there any questions from the audience? Yes, in the back.
Hey, Mark.
Hello.
I had a question about the sound, actually. I love it. I think it's not. that was amazing.
I said nothing to do with it.
I meant the film sound and the scoring and everything.
Is this kicking us out? So like, get out of here, we got another movie playing.
Well, I don't know, we'll probably wrap up in a few minutes and continue this sound over at the
Yes,
collector.
yes, I think I can hear you, so go crazy.
I just wanted to know how much of it was like in camera or sort of live when you were shooting with like a mic and boom, and how much did you do it fully outdoor?
Okay, these stop working, we're going to shout really loud. It was a good mix. We had a good mix of ADR and a good mix of what we actually shot. So what I tried to keep the performances that were natural, the sound that we recorded, but there were some scenes we did that were ADR entirely, like when Al jumps off the roof and then Phil's like, hey, what are you doing? And we were ripping off Birdie. If anyone's seen Birdie, wonderful Alan Parker film, it's Alice's favorite film. I said, oh, let's do the scene from Birdie, that would be really good fun for this, and it would foreshadow his suicidal tendencies. All that scene was ADR.
Oh, cool.
Because I was a bit lazy and I thought, oh, you know, don't worry about the sound. There was some mobile phone thing going off, so it was you kept hearing that. I said, I'll just scrap the sound, we'll ADR and we ADR the whole thing. And Phil is great at ADR, and he did a really good job of it. He did all the talking there, so.
Awesome.
But we going to
I think we could probably do 1 or 2 more questions, and then we probably should continue it down at the collector.
yeah, I'm happy to chat forever about it.
So let's see. Are there any other? Yes.
First off, I want to say that I really loved the film.
Thank you very
I
much.
was really deeply moved by it and really inspired by it as an artist myself.
Oh, thank you.
And my question is, how much of the backstory for the characters, for the relationships, I know you all workshopped it together, but how much was like your idea initially that you brought to them, and how much was the actors sort of playing and coming up with their own stuff?
Well, I wanted it to feel a lot like a reunion movie. So I wanted their history to feel very real, like these guys had grown up together, had been in school together. Hopefully the impression that, I shouldn't say this is kind of like, you know, I shouldn't leave this sort of set on your minds a bit, but hopefully the impression that Daisy was a few years younger than Craig and Phil, and just the idea that they had spent a lot of time together as kids, and they drifted apart, and this was them kind of coming together. That was how I felt it was, so we worked really hard on that. I was very specific about it never being stated too loudly, or I wanted it to always feel like something that wasn't said. And one of the things I feel with this film I was definitely trying for was that no one says anything, no one says what they're thinking, they say the other thing, and then we see what they're thinking through what they're saying being the other thing. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah.
And that was where I was trying with it. So.